Thank you for joining me this Saturday morning. Our Members First programs provide us with the perfect opportunity to thank everyone for their constant consideration and support, and invite anyone interested a chance to see the types of programming we offer. I designed this program in response to 2020, and then again for 2021, trying to up our luck for the year and take a fun and historical perspective to common superstitions. And we'll hope that this luck extends over the next few days as the forecast doesn't look great. To understand New Year's superstitions, we need to jump back in time to the Scandinavian winter festivals of Yule and Jul. Scholars agree that the Norse celebrated a festival commencing on winter solstice. However, the words Yule and Jul both indicate separate origins, as Yule could be Scottish or English, while Jul could be Germanic. This is problematic because scholars are not certain if they are concurrent, different celebrations, and if Yule could have descended from a different Germanic word. In 2018, Dr. Sommer, a professor at the University of Copenhagen, rejected past claims that Jul was a time the dead and living could interact, noting that this was more like a New Year's celebration than a cult of the dead or Day of the Dead event. Based on available primary sources, traditions, and folklore, she suggests the pre-Christian and post-Christian festivals celebrated the possibilities of the coming year with divination, emphasizing the creation of the new year instead of embracing the past. Norse culture interpreted divination as means of influencing or creating the future versus our current notion of just predicting or preparing for future events. For example, by partaking in food and drink during the festival, you could actively help create future abundance. While other scholars disagree, we do know that by 900 AD, people used the word Yule for Christmas, and we start to see the blending of the two holidays. Notably, the idea of influencing the future through current actions and activities will be a common theme across cultures. As you can see, every year, we carried this idea of partaking in food and drink on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day to be significant for our overall health and prosperity. What I find fascinating is how cultures modified and adapted certain traditions and superstitions. For example, some countries consider eating grapes on New Year's Eve very important, but the number varies. In Spain, you want to consume 12 grapes for the 12 strokes of midnight. In the Philippines, make that 13. 13 is considered a lucky number. Make sure to record the taste of the grapes too. Bitter ones are indicators of troublesome months. More superstitions appear on the actual day, indicating the start of the new year. Many people consume pork for good luck. The rotund shape of a pig represents prosperity, and their walking forward with their nose to the ground represents progress, moving forward. The Germans also consume sauerkraut with their pork, wishing each other as much wealth and goodness as the number of shreds of cabbage in the jar of sauerkraut. No worries if you do not eat pork, though. You can eat animal-shaped cookies and pastries for the same effect. In southern states, the traditional meal on New Year's Day consists of black-eyed peas, collard greens, and cornbread, all appealing to visual prosperity. Black-eyed peas resemble coins, collard greens symbolize dollars, and cornbread's golden yellow is reminiscent of gold. Eating these tangible reminders of wealth signals the hope of prosperity in the new year. If you prefer desserts, you can indulge in a classic Greek basilopita, often made with a lemon flavor. However, American adaptations use orange and brandy. Besides for it being round, another sign of luck, you place a large wrapped coin in the cake before baking. The person that finds the coin will receive extra luck in the new year, assuming they did not just crack a tooth. If you would prefer to leave coins outside of your cake, there are wonderful variations using whole almonds with almond flavorings available. Besides for all the food items you should consume, you need to also watch out for food that could backtrack you into 2021. Notably, avoid eating food that can walk backwards, like lobsters, which can walk and swim in both directions. Eating them before the stroke of midnight could produce setbacks in your year. Other practices focus on your actions on New Year's Eve. In Ecuador, people parade scarecrows, pop culture figures, and other symbols and icons in the street before ceremonially burning the effigies. As you can see on the left, we have the Joker. There's also SpongeBob and other interesting figures as well. The idea is to cleanse the bad from the last 12 months, with some people attempting to further their luck by jumping the fire 12 times for each month. Side note, you probably shouldn't do this. On the right, you can see someone attempting this. This lighthearted tradition, minus the jumping over the fire, potentially has darker roots. As scholars theorize, this links back to the 1895 practice of burning clothes in coffins during the yellow fever epidemic. The burning of clothes both acted as a purification and mourning ritual. The modern celebratory practice even includes men dressing as widows, begging for money during the parade. Superstitions are common throughout the year, and I selected two that Americans still practice or at least note in social media and modern culture. Knocking or touching wood for luck is a common practice and phrase. We can look at the origins in two different ways. First, we could consider the possible Indo-European and Celtic roots. The idea that you could connect to a living spirit dwelling within the tree, calling upon it to aid you. Later, Christians used this practice to channel potential magical energies associated with the wooden crucifix. Throwing salt over your shoulder is another superstition that Christians eventually blended into their own traditions. The purpose of this mini mess is to ward off or blind any evil spirits or demons that might be behind you. For the Romans, the idea of spilling salt was a pricey problem. Salt and spices throughout history could be expensive and hard to obtain. If it is bad luck to spill salt, you will want to avoid doing so, and this reinforced the idea that you do not waste that resource. Christians can also point to the Last Supper. Judas spilled salt. Have you automatically said bless you after someone sneezed, or even had a stranger say it to you after you sneeze? There are a few possible origin stories here. There is some indication Pope Gregory I, aka Gregory the Great, may have recommended saying it as a way to prevent death. This was during one of the bubonic plague outbreaks and could have comforted people or tried to give them a sense of control. Other ideas involve either trying to keep something in or get it out. If your spirit lived in your head and you sneezed it out, you want it back in quickly. On the other hand, if sneezing expelled evil spirits, you needed a way to keep it from inhaling it again or spreading it to someone near you. People often look for bad luck in threes, specifically 3 things that occur in succession that you must guard against. The idea of threes is contradictory and somewhat confusing. The number 3 is not an unlucky number, and we often invoke rituals or sayings. For example, 3 times a charm, counting to 3 before a race or some event. Fairy tales and folklore often embrace people and things in 3. For example, the 3 pigs, 3 bears, etc. But there is also the darker side of 3. The belief that an owl hooting 3 times is an ill omen, knocking 3 times in a room with a dying person will bring their death swiftly, and 3 candles burning in a room will invoke some type of unfortunate happenings. There is a negative connotation to 3 strikes a match, which may have fueled this superstition. This is specifically tied to warfare, trench warfare, with the idea that striking a match 3 times will give away your location and your position to someone watching. Psychologists believe people still use this rationale to actively comfort themselves. The idea that 3 bad things will happen means that there is an end in sight. After those 3 things, you will be okay. A self-fulfilling and comforting prophecy all wrapped in one. Sometimes we need to avoid practices that could result in misfortune. Such is the case when toasting. Never toast with water. Unfortunately, I've done this a lot and was shocked when I saw that this was a superstition. This particular superstition comes from the Greeks. The deceased drank from the river Lethe on their voyage to the underworld to erase their former lives. The living would then toast those deceased with water to symbolize the voyage via river to the underworld. Today, toasting with water could lead to your death, the death of the person you're toasting and celebrating, or just incur the wrath of the gods. All things to be avoided. On the flip side, certain things cannot be avoided, such as Friday the 13th. And for everyone that's joining, just to let everyone know, again, we are recording, and I will have the recording available at some point, and we'll send you a link as well. The history behind this particular superstition, Friday the 13th, actually has 3 different parts. First noted in Greek poet's book, Work and Days, Hesiod cautioned farmers, quote, to avoid the 13th of the waxing month for beginning to sow, although he did not provide any reasonings with it. Norse mythology and biblical records both associate 13 people gathered as unlucky as well. A Norse myth described how Loki, as the 13th guest, crashed a dinner party in Valhalla, bringing chaos and destruction, while the Last Supper had 13 gathered around the table in Christian belief. This belief that the ill brought ill fortune persisted, and in the 19th century, groups of 13 men formed 13 clubs, dedicated to defying the odds and debunking the superstition. Chaucer in Canterbury Tales may have brought Friday into the mix when he labeled Friday as a day of misfortune. In 1592, playwright Robert Greene coined the expression Friday face, referring to a look of dismay or doom. In 1633, playwright William Rowley described, quote, a plague of Friday mornings, the most unfortunate day in the whole week, end quote, in his play, A Match at Midnight. And in 1653, Richard Flecknoe supposedly invented the rhyme, quote, now Friday came, you old wives say, of all the weeks the unluckiest day, end quote. However, contrary to false myths regarding the Knights Templar, the two did not combine until the 20th century. In 1907, Thomas Lawson published the book Friday the 13th, about a fictional stockbroker who selected that day to crash the stock market. On March 14, 1908, the New York Times noted that one brave senator had defied the odds and introduced 13 public building bills into the Senate on that unlucky day. Quote, Friday the 13th holds no terrors for Senator Owen, end quote, the Times declared. This belief continued to evolve, and in the 1980s, we have the horror movie franchise Friday the 13th, cementing the two all over again. So instead of trying to prevent and or mitigate potential troubles with superstitious acts, We can look towards different philosophies to help actively assist and order our lives. Feng Shui is an ancient philosophical belief that one could live in harmony with their environment and surroundings by tapping into your qi, animating life force, to maximize its potential. This philosophy existed for thousands of years before Yang Young-sung published the first compiled guidebook in the 19th century, with roots in Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism, and Shinto. This is a complex philosophy that deserves more attention and research if interested in incorporating these elements into your life. As you can see, this is kind of a brief overview. Along with yin and yang, an 8-sided map and compass address the following aspects: career and journey, knowledge and self-awareness, helpful people and travel, family and health, children and creativity, wealth and prosperity, fame and reputation, and relationships and marriage. To balance the elements, we can divide them into the following categories: wood for creativity and growth, fire for leadership and boldness, earth for strength and stability, metal for focus and order, and water for emotion and inspiration. Designers incorporate these elements in intriguing ways. Eliminating clutter and adding plants are simple ways to start. You can incorporate animal protectors at your door, a pair of gatekeepers that can protect and assist. The color red can be used to represent vitality, whether you paint or just incorporate red into your clothing. The snake's plant, aka the mother-in-law's tongue, is a popular choice for the home as the leaves resemble swords that symbolize cutting through obstacles with fierce compassion. The plant itself is also very hardy and detoxifies the air. If you are interested in any of these sources, please let me know and I will send you the links to the articles to read. Before I give you my big thank you for attending and ask if you have any questions or suggestions for Superstitions, I'll just point out that our upcoming programs, we do have one today at 1 p.m., learning about cold winter friends in our Children's Day program. And on Saturday, the 29th, at the end of this month, at 10 a.m., we will be embracing our inner bibliophile by studying the yokai, Japanese folklore creatures that have a very long and fascinating history appearing today in manga and anime. So I will go ahead now and stop recording. And let's see.